If you want to start PVMing in RuneScape 3 and you have no clue how to or what you should look out for, then this video is for you, because I have 5 beginner tips for you if you want to start PVMing in RuneScape 3. As always, as a disclaimer, this video is focused for beginners, and if you are a rather experienced player, then you can definitely leave some critics in the comments. You can easily correct me if I said something wrong or you have a different opinion, because then we can learn all from each other. And also, if you liked the video, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. And now let's head right into it. So the first tip I have for you guys is kinda basic. And this is focus on one combat style for the beginning. In RuneScape 3, you have 4 different combat styles. We have melee, ranged, mage, and necromancer. And if you start to PVM and you always switch your combat style, it gets really complicated and really hard. Because you will have to buy gear for 4 different combat styles, you will have to learn abilities for 4 different combat styles, you have to learn rotations for all the combat styles and all that shenanigans. And it gets way more complicated than just focusing on one combat style for your start. For example, for me, when I started PVMing back in the days, I solely focused on range and I only went bossing with range, and after I had some experience, I started using the different combat styles. And for example, on my Bronzeman account, where I make a journey at the moment on this YouTube channel, I solely focus on necromancy, especially because it's really easy then to get better gear because you focus on only one combat style. So I don't have to spend millions of coins for each combat style to have a good weapon, and rather can spend my millions of coins just in one combat style and get better faster. So focusing on one combat style is definitely a good advice for everyone who starts PVMing. What combat style you want to use is definitely up to you, because every one of these is available. If you are looking for the easiest one to just get into PVMing, I think necromancy is a really safe option. It's not the best combat style in terms of DPS and high level bossing, but to start, I think it's the least complicated one, and it's really easy to get your hands on it. Also because the gear is kinda easy to get if you compare it to different combat styles. Whatever style you want to use is perfectly fine as long as you have fun with it. The second tip I have for you guys is gear upgrades. And the obvious right here is that the better your weapon and the better your armor, the more easy the boss instances will go. But I highly recommend to you all that you don't sleep on the different gear items, because we have more than just weapon and armor in this game. We have capes, necklaces, rings, pocket slot items, and also auras, not to mention god books, for example. And all of these slots in your setup can make a big difference in terms of DPS and tankiness of your account. So when I, for example, started PVMing, I only focused on getting a better weapon and getting some better armor, instead of just also looking up what different items can be really useful. And for example, if we take necromancy right here, you can easily get some upgrades to your PVM gear without having to spend that much money. Just as a quick example, you can unlock some fighting auras at the War's Retreat if you started PVMing. For example, for 5,000 marks of war, you will get a Vampirism aura, which is essentially just some lifesteal. And for 12,500 marks of war, you can then get, for example, a Dark Magic aura, which will increase your DPS. On my Bronzeman account, I also use a necklace that costs 500,000 coins, which actually is not that much, and has a 44 damage bonus in necromancy. In my pocket slot item, I actually have a Underworld Grimoire, which can also be really easy to unlock by doing the easy, medium, hard, or elite diaries in the city of And for example, on my account right here, I only have done the easy and medium ones, but it still has some bonuses which aren't that bad. Better than nothing, you know. On the ring slot, you can, for example, buy a Ring of Fortune, which has some okay stats for 1 million coins. Or you could also do the Broken Home quest with some challenges to get a Asylum Surgeon Ring, which has some really insane stats and also some benefits in terms of not spending adrenaline when using a threshold ability. So as you can see, there are many upgrades that you can make to your gear setup that don't cost like 500 million coins or something, and are still really good. So definitely do not only focus on weapons and armor, and rather just also be open for some different slots in your gear setup, which can make a really big difference. Next up, we have potions and familiars. With the skill Herblore, you can create potions, and after level 89, if you want to boost your level, or level 96 if you don't want to boost it, you can start making overload. And overloads are essentially just stat boosting potions. So an overload will increase your stats in every combat style, including your defense level, so you will be tankier and you will deal more damage to every mob that is in the game. And this works for all the combat styles and is really OP to use, and definitely one of those unlocks that you should focus on early on. Even if you don't have the level in Herblore, you can still buy and use some potions that can be really strong. For example, in today's game, you can buy every extreme potion for your combat style in the Grand Exchange. And extreme potions do essentially also boost your levels in said skill, so you can have increased damage and increased tankiness as long as you use a stat boosting potion for defense and for your combat style. So definitely use potions, and if you have the time, start training your Herblore level so you can create overloads for yourself. Then we also have the familiars. Familiars are the pets that you can spawn when you have a summoning level. It always depends on what familiar you want to spawn, but there are some really useful familiars out there. Sure, the most useful ones are the ancient familiars, and for them you sometimes need a really high level in summoning. For example, for a Ripper Demon you need level 96, but you also have some really good familiars in a not so high level. For example, the Hellhound will absorb 20% of the damage that is dealt to you, so it will just make you tankier and only needs level 45 in summoning. Or also the Beast of Burden, where for example a War Tortoise that you can unlock with level 67 in summoning, which can store 18 items for you, so you can essentially bring 18 more food to whatever boss instance you go, and so make it a little bit easier for you to beat your first bosses in the game. So also train up your summoning level and don't sleep on these familiars. The next tip is prayer and supplies. And this is kinda easy to understand, because the prayer skill is really useful in terms of PVMing. Because in prayer, you have early on with level 46 unlocked every protection prayer that is in your spellbook. And this essentially means that when you, for example, fight versus a boss that needs the combat style melee, you can activate your protection from melee prayer and just decrease the damage you will take from that boss. So leveling up prayer can be really important, at least to level 46 to get all those protection prayers. But you also have some different spells. You can early on get some spells that will increase your damage that you deal, increase your DPS, and especially when you get to a high level and you also make some quests to unlock curses, you can unlock the curse prayers that will increase your damage by about 12%, for example. You can unlock Soul Split, which is essentially just a lifesteal prayer, and you can also get the better protection prayer ones. So not sleeping on prayer is definitely something you should consider. And also, in terms of prayer, don't sleep on your supplies. So when you, for example, want to go bossing, use the best supplies you can get out there. I already mentioned the potions in the last tip, but also in terms of, for example, food, don't try to save money there. Sure, really good food, really good potions, really good familiars can be expensive, but I can definitely say it makes your whole journey a lot easier. And especially when you start to learn the bosses, it can be really frustrating when you die over and over and over again. And using the right potions, using the best food, using the best familiars that you can have on your level is definitely something you should consider. Because when I started PVMing, I definitely did not, because I always try to save as much money as possible. And I can definitely tell you guys, using better supplies makes a lot of things way easier in your grind. So, after all these tips, there is only one question left that is open, and it's the question, what boss should you kill? I mean, there are so many bosses out there in RuneScape 3, and not everyone is definitely a beginner boss. And if you want to have a more detailed list of what I think what bosses are the best for beginners, I have linked you a video in the description which will lead you to my tier list of all the bosses in the game. But if you want to start right now and don't want to watch a different video, here are my top 3 recommendations for you if you want to start bossing in RuneScape 3. The first thing I can definitely recommend to you is the Arc Glacier. Arc Glacier is a boss that has a really interesting mechanic, because you can start the boss with 0 enrage and 0 mechanic, and then you can just start by doing a boss, trying some DPS rotations and all that shenanigans. And if you then want to increase your skill level, you can start activating 1 mechanic at a time. He then has up to 5 mechanics, and when you get to the point where you know all the mechanics and you can easily fight him, you can start increasing the enrage of the boss until you get to like 4000 enrage. You can essentially just decide how hard your boss fight should be, and you can adjust it to your skill level, and it is definitely one of the best bosses that you can use to start PVMing. The second boss I would recommend to you are the bosses from God Wars Dungeon 1, and especially General Grador, because I think he is the easiest one in this dungeon. He basically has not a lot of mechanics and is really easy to do and really beginner friendly, but you can start getting a feeling for your PVMing journey. You can learn what it takes to grind the boss to get those rare loots. You can start making some good GP. And you can also start, for example, learning mechanics like kiting a boss, or also prayer flicking, which can be something that you can do at General Grador to decrease the damage you take. So he is definitely a beginner-friendly boss, and it is one of the bosses that I have maybe killed the most in my career. So the last boss I recommend to all of you guys is Vindicta. Vindicta actually isn't the easiest boss that you have in the game. For example, in my tier list, I have listed him as a intermediate boss and not a beginner boss. But I think that Vindicta has some really straightforward mechanics that are kinda easy to learn. And when you first started learning him and you know how his rotations work and you know when to prayer flick, or for example use a defense spell to get some of your HP back, it is really rewarding to counter those mechanics the right way. So you have a really nice feeling of progression while doing Vindicta. And his loots are also kinda good. In the common loot you have some really nice rune drops and dragon bones that are really expensive, but you also have the rare drops that are worth a lot. So Vindicta, I think, is a really good recommendation, not for your first boss, but when you, for example, started with Arc Glacier or the God Wars Dungeon 1 and you start being more comfortable in PVMing, he is definitely a boss that you can take on early on. So there you have it. These were my 5 tips for all of you guys if you want to start PVMing. And now let me know in the comments if these were any useful for you. And enjoy your boss fights and good luck on your drops.